Hey everybody, Devin Stone here. I hope you're doing extremely well. And thanks for being patient with me as I've taken some time off to do a little soul searching, a little reevaluation of what I want to be doing. And I wanted to get back on track with producing content in my channel, but I wanted to change the subject matter, the primary subject matter, and the focus a little bit. Not that I won't be doing social commentary, men's interest, and things like that, because it's always going to be an interest of mine, but really my purpose in life, and what I want to work more on is discussing matters of meaning, personal philosophy, and spirituality. So I'm going to refocus my content more in that direction, and we can kick that off with today, as well as some of these AI assisted films and music videos that I'm working on, just kind of starting to get my feet wet with expressing myself in the video art arena. And I think AI is really helpful in that, because not everyone can hire a crew and a cast and get the actors together, and it would just cost thousands upon thousands of dollars. But what's really cool with AI is you can be like a bedroom filmmaker, almost like they had this term bedroom DJ or music composer. It's very similar to that. So, yes, there's some market disruption with any new technology, but this is one thing that's quite promising, that it could potentially democratize this visual creative space. So I think that's as exciting as it is scary. But anyway, the purpose of this lecture is becoming yourself, and what that means on a spiritual level, and how do you find out your purpose in life, because we're always told, follow your passion, do what you're meant to do, and the money will follow, blah, 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 right? We've heard this 1,000 times, but the problem is, but we don't know. Like a lot of people feel that, and I know I have in the past a lot, felt that if I had just had something I felt quote unquote passionate about, that would solve its own problems. But a lot of us don't know what that thing is, and there's some trial and error in that. And one thing is, the Stoic philosophers probably would take issue with that this obsession with passion, they considered passion to be an extreme emotion, and it was a net negative, that quelling the passions was one practice that Stoic students of Stoic philosophy were to engage in, because there are a lot more positive emotions than just passion. Passion is almost a state of agitation, like you feel that you have to fight for something, or you're riled up, like agitated. But why not wonder? Why not fascination? One of my heroes, Terence McKenna, I don't know if he would say he was passionate about the psychedelic experience and psilocybin mushrooms, but he certainly was just awestruck with wonder, to the point where it was a magnificent obsession for him. There's a term in the kind of the occult, Western occult circles, of the great work, the magnum opus, which just kind of means the great opera, your great work, right, in life. And I've heard this described as the magnificent obsession, but there's more than one positive emotion that is, I would think, permissible for something like that. Like we said, wonder. What about it brings you great peace? It brings you joy. It brings you maybe a childlike sense of excitement. What about that? What about excitement, right? That's not necessarily passion. There's not a lot of things in life that we feel necessarily passionate about, or a lot of times in a relationship, it might start out as passion. We could call it passionate, but it doesn't always stay that way, because the familiarity kicks in, and maybe it yields a little bit. Maybe the passion yields a little bit to affection, familiarity, trust, and it's not to say that these aren't worthwhile, but there's a great book, So Good They Can't Ignore You, which is about why skills trump passion. And the only thing about that I kind of disagree with is, skills are important, but when it comes to your life direction, what you do with your life, I think most of us are already born with the skills necessary to exceed and succeed in what we need to be doing. We only need to get out of our own way. So let's jump into that. Apologize for the electronic noises. I'm going through and muting things while I'm trying to do this, but we'll just leave it be for now until I get myself a little bit better situated with my new equipment here. So, well, on this topic of at a spiritual level, and what does that mean? I'm writing a book called What is Spirituality, because it's like a catch-all for everything. And I think spirituality deals with the meaning of existence that is inherently non-physical. This is, if we're going to make a delineation, if there's something where we could say what is not spiritual, typically we're referring to the material. This is where people get into debates. We're in a state of material fascination right now, especially when you get into neuroscience, and there's this flatlining of all the human experience into neurotransmitters and neurochemicals, and there's this obsession with pop science today. And if I have a purpose and a meaning, or at least part of it in my life is to serve as a counterpoint to that. And I have training in the traditional sciences. I'm not a PhD. I do have a bachelor's degree in biological science, which I think helps me to kind of explain the benefits and the pitfalls to this materialist outlook. But in my life, okay, so I'm not against anyone. I'm not here to argue one. Say that I'm better or anything. I was raised Jewish in a Reformed Jewish household. There were a lot of positives to that, and a lot of things that really, as far as the upbringing in a religious sense, I really didn't like. And one of the things that I got out of it was just how intensely legalistic Judeo-Christian religions tend to be. Like they have a common ancestry, right? In Judaism and Christianity. And so in both, you have Torah and Judaism, what Christians call the Old Testament, and it's just rules and regulations. Like, you do these things and God will punish you for doing this and for not doing that. And I have a different take on that, which is that we don't want to throw that out, but we should grow up spiritually to the point where we know that it's inherently wrong to not murder people. We know that it's wrong to steal things. But I am sure there were previous generations of people that did not know that that was wrong. They had to be told. And the universal source of intelligence, praeter-human intelligence, justice is God, or what those cultures called God. And so there was a phase in our evolutionary spiritual history where we had to be told. But I think that's why legalistic religion has really waned in terms of what it does for people, because when it comes to meaning of your life having value, tends to not give you a lot of guidance in that direction, or at least it didn't for me. It's just a lot of do this, do that, a lot of harsh rules. In Christianity, of course, they kitbash this notion of Tartarus Hades, this Greco-Roman notion of a hell, a bad place where people go forever. And it was literally an underworld, even though no one today believes that hell is literally under the earth, but people used to think that heaven was literally up in the clouds somewhere. So far, you couldn't see it, and Hades, hell, is literally down under your feet. In Dante's The Inferno, it is poised that way, right? That Angel Virgil takes him down a cave, and he goes down. It's very much like Diablo, the video game, goes literally down into the bulges of hell. But the Christians borrowed this idea of what the Greeks called Tartarus, what the Romans called Hades, which became a notion of hell. And you believe the right things, you go to heaven, and if you don't believe the right things or you do bad things, you go to hell, and that's it. You have one life. Christians don't embrace the notion of reincarnation at all. I do. So in the traditional Jewish religion, not counting the reformers, because Reform Judaism is, I think, a little bit befuddled, but in the traditional sense that I enjoy, you reevaluate your life from this higher plane after you die, And typically there's an angel that guides you around, and you can beat yourself up over the horrible things you did. You're shown your past and all the horrible things you did, and you can beat yourself up over it. But for a period not to exceed 6 months, there's a hard cap on that, and then you reincarnate and you get to forget all about it and be a whole new kind of horrible person. And I say that jokingly, but I guess it's partially true. But you don't have to have been brought up in some hardcore denomination of Judaism or Christianity to have the values instilled in you. As Terence McKenna said, Judeo-Christianity is in the air you breathe. It's the paradigm that drives the world, the civilization that we live in, and there are great things about that and things that I think are tremendously detrimental to the individual in terms of their individual happiness, individual growth, and the freedom that I think we need to be experiencing. My nuclear family was not the best in terms of the messages I got and the upbringing that I had, and I suffered even more so in the government school system, being harassed, teased, bullied, called names. That, there's a whole backstory to that. But I developed obsessive compulsive disorder at a very young age, due to the anxiety, the crushing anxiety that I was under. So when I criticized the boomers and their mentality about things, it's having suffered firsthand from being brought up with boomer parents. They're tremendously narcissistic, self-serving, and spaced out people that didn't really have the wherewithal to know what was going on with their kids. But in the midst of all this suffering, I one day randomly my dad had taken my brother and myself to Santa Monica, and there was this New Age bookstore, and it was like walking into a world of wonder. I had never seen before this making of a philosophy that meant that I was worth something, that there's something here there's a philosophy, roughly speaking, that's actively involved in improving me as a person from the perspective that I was worth discovering what my life was all about. It's here for me. And there was a fair amount of Eastern books of, from schools of yoga, Buddhism, but it's about investing in myself rather than laying down the stick of legalism, religious legalism on me. So I really like this term, spiritual but not religious. I like that term a lot. I think that applies to me because religion is a method, is a community with a set of rules and regulations orbiting an institution. Spirituality means you have a functional outlook on it. You have a functional outlook on a meaning-based, non-physical intelligence, a non-physical mythology and philosophy that drives our connection with each other and meaning to our lives, and it doesn't have to obey the rigidity of a system that may or may not communicate a spiritual experience to the individual at all. More often than not, it doesn't. More often than not, an adherence to a religion is relegating that. I'm doing it. I'm doing my homework, and the clergy has the spiritual experience, or that's not for me. But I'm a good person. I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what I'm told, and this is beyond my understanding, right? So I understand that there are many positives to religion, guidance. People that are into it I'm not knocking that, would say that it serves as kind of an anchor, guiding light for their week. If you go to church once a week, you go and you reconnect. And I'm not saying you can't have a spiritual experience in a religious setting. You certainly can, but in a lot of the institutions today, you don't. So I didn't find that to be particularly helpful when it comes to answering this question of, well, what is my spiritual purpose and what should I do with my life? A lot of times organized religion are very dismissive of that, like it doesn't matter. And as we'll get into, sometimes the Eastern schools are no better at that. So when you want to know this question, and you have at your core this belief that this is a spiritual question. This is not a question that can be answered scientifically. There's no objective test you can take, no blood test, DNA test you can take that's going to tell you what the meaning of your life is, who you should be, what you should do with yourself. You hear many an Eastern school of thought guru tell you, well, you need to start doing these practices. And the practices involve meditating, thought observation. That's a mindfulness practice, right? Not being the thought, but being mindful of your thoughts, observing the thoughts as Eckhart Tolle prescribed. And Eckhart Tolle was kind of doing a Zen Buddhism for dummies in his Power of Now. And I'm not knocking that, because streamlining information is very important and extremely useful, really quite brilliant in a way, because he could have called the Power of Now Zen Buddhism for beginners and no one would have bought it. But this take that he had, that it was the power of now, that it just gets rid of the things that distract us from living in the present moment, really critical distinction. And when a Westerner sees that, if you went and you saw some guru of yoga or something, or went to a Zen Buddhist retreat or something, and you got all these problems, and the teacher, whoever it is, tells you, well, you need to just sit down and you need to do this. To the Western mind, it sounds like ignoring the problem, because it defies the state of rational distress that you're in, right? Say, well, how is that? That's not going to solve the problem. That's not going to, you're telling me to ignore the problem. And in a way, you'd be right, because there is a school of thought from the Vedic side where the yogi is supposed to renounce worldly cares. So there is a school of thought that says, well, you are supposed to ignore it. You shouldn't have this problem to begin with. That's not what's really important. But what I want to propose to you today is the Tantric school that says, no, it's not about ignoring it. It's about dealing with the state that you're in. That makes the Eastern practices extremely practical, because it's equipping you with the tools to solve the problem. If I was a guru of tantric yoga, or maybe I am, maybe this makes me that, I don't know. But I would say, well, you're not in your right state of mind right now. We're not going to say that you shouldn't have this problem. You have problems with your girlfriend or your job. We're not going to say, well, you shouldn't have a girlfriend or a job. That's your problem. Aha, you need to renounce those things. And then see, look, no problem. No, regardless of what your problems are, you're in what Eckhart Tolle would call your pain body. You're in your pain mind. You're going to try to solve the problem from a state of anxiety, a survival-based mentality. There are only two states of mind that you can really be in life. You can be a spiritually based mind, or you can be a survival based mind. Survival based mind is rooted in Kabbalah, what we call the nefesh, the animal soul. That's what nefesh means, your animal soul. That means we're just like the animals. We operate on pain and pleasure. We operate on fight, flight, freeze, however they keep adding more. Originally we said fight or flight, but life is about trying not to die. So it's the basest of mentalities that we could possibly have. You're trying not to die. You're an anxiety-based, ergo a survival-based organism. Spiritual-based organism, what is that? Fulfillment, embracing your higher powers. Uniquely, at least here in the physical world, I don't know, there might be other entities, probably are, angels and such, but here in the physical world, it's a uniquely human trait that distinguishes us from the animals, is our ability to connect to spirit. And we want to look for purpose. We want to look for meaning. We can even jump off the cliff and do the meaningful thing and ignore the survival and know that we'll be okay. See, oversimplifying it, it really is the love or fear dichotomy. Donnie Darko would be upset with me over that. He mocks this. I think, was it Patrick Swayze in Donnie Darko? I think it was, who's love or fear, love or fear. Oh, it's not that simple. Well, actually, what if it is? Because fear is the survival impulse. It's the survival instinct, trying not to die. And love, well, love is an emotion, maybe not in such a touchy-feely way for other people, but love of self, love of spirit, love of connection. The power of love between you and your what Crowley would call your true will. There's literally the current of meaning that propelled your spirit to take physical form. Okay, that's what I really like about. I had my own issues with Crowley, but what I liked about his philosophy was that your life has an actual action-based, work-based meaning to it, and you are born a certain way. This is who you are, and if you betray it, that's what he called black magic. Black magic wasn't doing bad things by some Judeo-Christian definition. Black magic means you betrayed your will, and the will is not what you want to do; it's what you're born to do. And that black magic is this interior self sabotaging swindle that somebody does when they force themselves to do somebody else. You can the hell is experienced as a real life consequence of betraying your will. Okay, so it's up to us to find out what that is. And so going back to the spiritual practice, thought observation, transcendental meditation is a good form of that. Pranayama, getting your chakras working by means of energy work. Breath work is good for that. It is not something that is divorced from the problems that you're dealing with. It is a form of exercise that you're doing. It is not spirituality in of itself. It is the dojo. It's the gym. It's what you're doing to condition yourself. What do we do when we go to the gym? Well, you go once a year. It's not going to do anything. Go once a week. It'll do a little bit. Do it 3-4 times a week. It'll do a lot for you. It is a conditioning of your state. You are conditioning your state when you do these practices to make sure that you're in a state of alignment so that when you think and when you act, you're thinking and acting from your highest purpose, from your highest state of alignment. You are not acting, speaking, behaving through the pain body. And that's pretty much it, right? In meditation, I'll give you a personal example so you can kind of frame this around how it might work for you. The first thing is you have to refocus, which means you just put your thoughts aside and take a few deep breaths, which is intended to calm you down, right? That you're not going to seek spiritual insight from a place of being ramped up and nervous. So that's really step one. And then I do thought observation for, if I'm out of practice, 5 minutes at a time. If I'm in practice, 10, 20 minutes at a time. And from there, what I'm looking for is inspired thought. So I don't want to ignore all thoughts. I want to ignore base thoughts that are reactionary. And I want to observe negative emotion. And from there, there are periods of intense insight where I've seen my life, the events of my life, adding up to something. And I can get into this state of higher perception, which is nothing all that superhuman. I wouldn't call it a city. I wouldn't call it an ability. It's a state, and you achieve that state through, I pray to my holy guardian angel. I do that. I do my deep breathing exercises. I calm myself down, and I do thought observation from this state. And from there, I can, how do we say it? There was a character in that animated film, Prince of Egypt, and there was a line, "Look at your life through heaven's eyes." That's what you want. Instead of being a victim of your life, you see the events of your life as meaningful and significant, and from there, your purpose emerges. Everything in your life, I promise you, is always nudging you back to that. Even when it seems like you're deviating, when you achieve knowledge of your true will, even the deviations serve to fuel it. You cannot betray it unless you choose to not act. But there's never really a state of mistake. You can just see, well, I didn't follow through on it, and I suffered because I didn't follow through on it. But the suffering only served to fuel it in the end. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think, and I hope this was helpful for you. And have a great day.